Earlier in this class, we discussed market segmentation, which is a fundamental building block of marketing strategy. In this module, we discuss another key element of marketing strategy, that is product positioning. Positioning means creating an image or set of perceptions about your product among consumers, and this requires an understanding of how your product is perceived relative to your competitors in the market. In order to understand how consumers perceive products, we use a tool called perceptual mapping. With this technique, we can build a map of how products are located in the marketplace based on consumer perceptions of their similarity to each other. The questions we are seeking to answer with perceptual mapping are: how are products perceived by customers? What attributes do they believe these products have? Who am I competing with? That is, which of my competitors compete most closely with my product in consumers' minds? Is there an opportunity for a new product or for repositioning existing products? That is, are there gaps in the market where I can compete more effectively? Here are some best practices for constructing perceptual maps. Select attributes that are determinant, that is, those that determine people's choices. As you may recall, an attribute may be important but not determinant if all the choices have that feature. For example, Bluetooth in phones is important but not determinant, since everyone has that feature. Plot multiple perceptual maps with different attributes each time. The maps will show you how products are perceived in different ways, and using only one map will result in an incomplete picture. So which map should you use? They will all be helpful to different degrees, but you should use the map that shows the attributes you want to use for positioning your product. Make separate maps for each segment. This is obvious since perceptions may vary by segment. And finally, don't put price and quality on the same map. They are usually correlated, so they may represent the same dimension. The best way to understand how perceptual mapping works is by taking an example. Let's say you conduct a survey about people's perception of cars and ask respondents, to what extent do the following words describe each of these cars, and you give them a set of cars to rate: Saab, Cadillac, Ford, etc. Respondents are asked to rate the cars on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 means describes very poorly and 7 means describes very well. The attributes on which the cars are rated are luxurious and sporty. Based on the responses from a sample of consumers, you can calculate the average rating for each car on each attribute, and that yields this table. Based on the table, you can come up with a perceptual map showing how consumers perceive the cars relative to each other. Let's hold off for a moment on the question of how you draw the map, and let's see what we can learn from it. Here's how to read this map. The horizontal and vertical dimensions are the attributes along which cars are positioned. The circles are the locations where the different cars are positioned. The further out a car is on a dimension, the more it corresponds with the label on that end. So now let's ask a few questions that a manager might ask when looking at such a map. Which cars are highest in the attributes luxury and sportiness? Jaguar and Saab are the highest in both luxury and sportiness, with Jaguar marginally higher. Honda and Ford are both seen as being less luxurious and more no-frills and less traditional than Cadillac. The next question a manager might ask is, which cars compete most closely with each other? It seems likely that Saab and Jaguar compete most closely because they are closest to each other on this map, which means they are perceived as being most similar to each other. Similarly, Honda and Ford are close competitors. The last question we might ask is there a market opportunity for a new product offering? Which is another way of saying, is there a gap in the market? To answer this, you have to look at areas in the map where there are no competitors, where literally there is a gap or an empty space. We can see that on this map, there is an empty space in the top left quadrant, meaning that there is no car that is high in sportiness and no frills. You could also argue that there is a gap on the bottom right part of the map because there is no car that is high in luxury like Jaguar and traditional like Cadillac. Now, this may represent an opportunity to introduce a new car with that combination of attributes, either a sporty and no-frills car or a luxurious and traditional car. But it is important to ask yourself why there is no existing car with those attributes. It may be that such a combination is technically infeasible. For example, it may not simply be possible to make a car with sports car performance that is low in luxuriousness. Or it could be that there is no demand for a car with that combination of attributes. For example, consumers may simply not be looking for a luxury car that is also low in sportiness. So one needs to be careful in drawing conclusions based on a gap in the market.